Okay, so in this video, I'm going to demonstrate the Citrasolv transfer process. So the Citrasolv transfer process is a process that you use to transfer an image to another support. So to prepare for this process, you need a laser print of an image. So it needs to be a hot process laser print. So I went to Staples and got this printed there with their hot process laser printers. So mine is in color. It's very easy to get a black and white one as well that you would just get from a regular copier. So what will not work is a printout from an inkjet printer or even a laser printer that doesn't have the hot process. So we're thinking like big heavy duty copiers is what you want, okay? Because the ink will transfer from those copies as opposed to a regular printer, like an inkjet printer rather. It will not, the ink will not transfer well from that. So you will also need the paper that you're going to transfer it onto. Mind you, this also works on some fabrics as well. But today I am using just like a heavier weight printmaking paper to transfer my image. You could also use a watercolor paper. To make the transfer happen, and where the name of the process comes from is this solution called Citrasolv. Citrasolv is a concentrated cleaner and degreaser, or at least that's the product that you want to use for this process. So it's just like a cleaning solution that you would dilute to use it to clean, but we're going to use it in its straight concentrated form today. Okay, then you need something to transfer that for the process. So I'm just using a cotton swab. Paper towel would work as well. I used a scissors to trim my image down. So I trimmed my image down pretty much against the image. You can also leave a border. The edges of your transfer will look different depending on whether you end up having the tape that we're going to adhere this to the paper with overlap the image or not. So you can decide if that's something you want to try out or not. The other thing that I have tape. So I actually pre-tore my tape. It's out of the screen right now to do the process for you. And then you need something to burnish with. So I have a big spoon. The staple removers that we use to remove the staples from the art boards at the art show also work very well for this. Anything like hard metal that you can rub against a surface will work really well. And then I have a ruler, and I also had a pencil, and I used that just to measure out my paper so it's a good size for my image. So I have about like 2 inches around the image on each side, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. You could do more, you could do less. Whatever you like is really up to you. And then I also kind of put little tick marks to see kind of where I want to position the image to center it. So that's what I have. Okay, so things that I did to prepare were I trimmed this, I tore the paper to the correct size, I marked off where I want my print to go, and then I pre-tore my tape as well. All right, so let's get to the actual process. So the actual process, the first step that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tape the paper to the table. So right now I'm working in my kitchen, so I just have my kitchen counter here to tape it to, but the art desk will work just fine. And so I'm taking my tape, and I did prep my tape by taping it onto my jeans first, just so that way it's not quite as sticky and the tape will not tear the actual paper when I remove it once I'm done with the process. So, and then I'm just, just taping it so it's nice and flat and adhered to my countertop. And so this process does kind of have a watercolorish look to it, which you'll see. Like I said, you can do it on fabric as well. So there's a lot of different things that you can do to incorporate it into an artwork as opposed to using it just as the artwork in the end, which would be my goal for you. My goal for you would be to take this process and then take it a step further by putting another art medium over it or into it, or if there's even a way that you could get it to work over top of another process, I think that would be really cool. But you could certainly work back into it with watercolor, watercolor pencils, or really a number of different art mediums. Okay, so now I'm going to tape the image onto the paper. And so again, I'm going to prep my tape just by putting it on my jeans so it's not so sticky. And then this is the part where I'm I try to be really thoughtful about how much of the paper I'm covering with the tape. And so I'm gonna do about 1/4 of an inch. So, I mean, you could actually measure this out if you wanted to. But basically where that tape is is there's going to be kind of like a bleed in the border of the image. So if you end up not liking the way the bleed looks, then you should leave some white around the border of your image, so that way your tape would end up being there. I'm just going to go ahead, before I push this down, I'm going to make sure that this is really nice and flat, and then I'm going to take the tape and fasten it down. Okay. All right, and then left side. So I am trying to keep those borders consistent on all sides. Again, you could be more precise by actually measuring it off and putting little like tick marks on the back of your image if you wanted to. But I am just kind of eyeballing it today. So that is really your call. All right, and then one last piece. Okay, and that looks good. All right, so the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the back of where the image is with the Citrasolv. And so I'm going to open up the Citrasolv. This is a new container of it, so I have to peel off its little foil top there. And then I'm just going to take a cotton swab, and you really don't need very much. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply it over the back of the image, and you can see that I can start to see through the paper to where the turtle that is in the photograph that I'm transferring today is. And that's really all that I need. So you don't need a lot of Citrasolv. More does not make it work better. You really just need a small amount, and once you have that small amount down, you're just going to spread it across the back of the image, so that way the image the paper almost becomes clear. Okay, and then at this point you're going to start the burnishing. So the burnishing is really just taking something hard and rubbing over every part of the image. Okay, and so I am also going to rub over the edge of the tape where the image is, because I'll get a little kind of like bleed of the image. But it's really, really important that you get over the entire image, rubbing really, really hard with whatever it is you're burnishing. So I'm just going to kind of go like back and forth like this. Sometimes the pattern that you're using to burnish the image onto the paper will show up in the final image. So if you wanted to, you could use like circles, you could go diagonally, I could go horizontally, or like on diagonal like this to go with kind of the direction of the turtle is kind of crawling into the image area. So you can be really thoughtful about that, but sometimes it doesn't show up. So don't be disappointed if you went ahead and burnished your whole thing in a particular pattern in hopes that it would really add this extra kind of technique to your piece, and then it doesn't show up. So, and really what that probably means is that you did a really good job burnishing. Okay, so you're just going to be watching me burnish for a bit, and then I usually will peek under a corner to see and make sure that things are transferring the way that they're supposed to. And if all is good, I will be able to remove the image that's taped down. If it's not, then I need to kind of carefully put the image back on and then continue to burnish it. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to peek under a corner. Okay, and I think I'm going to keep burnishing just a little bit more. Okay, so after a whole bunch of burnishing, I'm ready to check it out and see how the image transferred. So it is going to be a lot lighter than the original ink printout of the image, but I am going to remove the tape. So if your tape is being stubborn and keeps tearing your paper, which mine sadly did, something that you can try is you can take a blow dryer and just blow dry where the tape is, and sometimes that will help it to not be so stuck to your paper. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, and so there is my Citrasolv transfer of my turtle. So again, what I might suggest to you is that you could work back into this. You could work into this with other art mediums. You could layer other Citrasolv transfers over top of it. You could try that. Or you can layer other printmaking methods over top of it. And so if you look right here, you'll see there's kind of like a lined edge and then kind of a faded border outside of it. And that is where the tape overlapped the image. And so I kind of like that. I think it looks kind of cool, almost like a, I don't know, like a hand painted on photo emulsion or something. So it's totally up to you whether you like that or not. If you don't like it, then just leave more of a white border on your image and you will not end up with that sort of like faded out technique there. Okay, well, I hope you enjoy the Citrasolv transfer process. I enjoy it. I think it's a lot of fun. And I encourage you to experiment with it and to see if there are ways that you can integrate it into an artwork. Okay, so just to give you a closer up look of what this process looks like, you can see a little bit more of like kind of the paper texture that's showing through, and you can see kind of how the colors and the contrasts are faded from the original image. So there's the original image. You can also see that it is flipped. So the turtle is facing this way in the original image, but he is facing the opposite way in the transfer. So just some things for you to plan for and think about.